And we just had a fantastic interview with Greg Hanley, who's doing some really amazing things. But unfortunately, I don't have enough time on the morning show to be able to say everything that I feel needs to be said. So I'm taking this time to do what's called an after show program, after the morning show program, for each and every one of you to not only understand what's going on in our own great nation, but also what's happening maybe on the home front. You know, LA, all the way to the East Coast, West Coast, East Coast, and in between, we have a situation happening. And it's one that I've been seeing ever increasing. Now, for those of you that don't know, I grew up in a family where we were always going to facilities for treatment. My dad currently suffers from schizophrenia. My mom oftentimes suffered from bipolar disorder. And unfortunately, I always was in and out of medical facilities, seeing people that were unwell, maybe whether it be something that I didn't know or understand at the time as I was very young of age. So I've always made it a mission of mine to eventually help out the rest of America, quite literally, in some way, shape, or fashion. And the only way that I know how is to bring awareness of a very important topic that's happening. Sometimes we're completely unaware of it unless you yourself know somebody that's either unwell or needs medical attention and or maybe is going or needs to go through recovery. So joining us right now is Greg Hanley of Soba Recovery Centers. Good morning. Welcome to the show, Greg.
Good morning.
Greg, I know we had you on for a little bit of time, but obviously thank you for spending some additional time with me. I know we've spoken off camera about the situation that we're seeing, but I'm on the receiving end of like my dad, right? I want him to be taken care of. However, those that don't know, unfortunately, we live in the state of California, and California, I don't know if people are aware of this, but there's a lot of what I call hampering being done. Like you're tying the hands of the people that need help and tying the hands of those that want to help. Can you talk a little bit on that?
Well, the things have changed quite a bit in the height of the opiate epidemic, and being on the forefront, we were talking and I've done a lot of shows that we talked about what needed to get done, what needed to get done, what needed to get done. And then I would watch the new laws and the money being spent in a completely different way.
Mm-hmm.
And in the height of the opiate epidemic, at that time, actually, it's not the height because it hadn't reached the height. You know, anybody who thinks that something changed and it got better, it didn't. It's not slowing down a minute. And by the way, there's 65,000 18 to 25-year-olds who are not surviving, that are overdosing and passing away and having to be buried every single year. And in the 10 years since I've seen the spike in the opiate epidemic, that's of the reported ones, it's close to 1 million. And I'm watching, we're in the middle of a pandemic right now, and I'm watching every kind of thing that happens and millions and trillions of dollars to be spent. And I'm wondering who forgot about the addicts? Who forgot about this epidemic that it was created by drug companies? It was the Narcan to have somebody pop up after an overdose. They made billions of dollars on Narcan, which all first responders have, and now they want to have medicated assisted treatment, which means getting people addicted to Suboxone. And it just is, it's insane to me that you have the same people that created the epidemic are now selling the cure. And there's a better way for this. So right at the height of it, the insurance companies, we're getting along. We're able to give almost a year's worth of treatment to somebody that came in with whatever type of problem they had, which you needed that long. The success rate of a 30-day treatment, the dirty little secret is it's less than 2%. And it doesn't matter where you go. And if you just go in for detox, go try to detox and then come out and go back to your life, it's 0%. No, nobody does that because everybody that comes in has underlying issues. And you've seen it in your life. You've seen
Mm-hmm.
what that looks like without the drugs and alcohol. Now, think about when you add the drug, and maybe you've seen it with it. I don't know. But when you add the drugs and alcohol to those type of things that are going on and you take them away, which I didn't know. I'm an addict. I went in for every kind of drug that you could imagine when I was to the point I had wrecked my life. I was in a almost a 6 months intervention because I had a lot of money and power, and my CEO kept coming at me and coming at. I must have fired him 10 times. I was going to
Mm.
go and shoot him one day because I thought
Wow.
his goal was to destroy my life when actually he was the only one brave enough to save it. And he wouldn't give up. And so I've been in the mix. I've been right in the depths of all of this stuff. And I had the resources at that time to be able to get in. And then I got out and I saw how many people didn't have the resources. And we were able to use just typical health insurance. Somebody had any kind of policy, they pretty much could come into treatment and we could treat them. They could stay as long as they needed to. And when you think about it, with all the things that go on for somebody who needs to go to treatment, there's so many things that need time to be addressed,
Mm-hmm.
that need a lot of therapy. I mean, when I think of the young females that I met who were just sexually abused and had so much things that happened, then you're not going to fix that in 2 therapy sessions in a 30-day treatment. I hate to say. Or you have guys that things that happen to them, or traumas, especially, or like a bipolar disorder,
Mm-hmm.
or somebody that's schizoaffective that needs to have, and you have to have time to manage medications, and especially on the spiritual end, you have to have the time for somebody to regain their purpose as a human being and become spiritually fit again. People don't come in happy. The ones that came in and go, I'm happy to be here, I knew I was going to have a problem with them. The ones who just hated me, hated life, hated treatment, didn't want to live, I would go, this guy has a shot at it.
Wow.
And it
Whereas
was
most
like,
people would just give up on that person. Correct me if I'm wrong.
yeah, we don't shoot our wounded.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like that phrase.
They,
And unfortunately, what I've been seeing and even in the home front, and I'm talking about, I live in the LA community. Everywhere from LA, San Bernardino, Riverside, Orange County, and then some. However, I have seen an increase in homelessness like everybody else has. And I've often asked myself, and maybe you can help me with this. What I have seen is, and I think the majority of people that are out there see a lot of hopelessness, and more importantly, you could tell ones are not well when they're shouting at the top of their lungs to something that isn't there, and or hallucinating. And back to my stepdad. I love my stepdad. I don't want to throw his business out there, but I know if it helps somebody out there say, you know what, I need help as well. I would hear all kinds of things growing up from my dad. And I was often like, okay, I don't know what to make of that. However, here's what I know. When he needed the help, he went and got the help. But that was at a different time when, for example, he used to be in there weeks at a time. And oftentimes, every time he came out, if he had to go in, he came out a better person. But as of late, what I have seen, and this is again my own personal story, so it may not fit for everybody, or is it, where people are going in and then they're being released 3 days later, and unfortunately, my dad thought we were out to get him. So he was like, I don't want to talk to them. And they dropped him off instead of back at the house where he had a home, a loving home at that. They dropped him off because of HIPAA laws. They dropped him off not only in the middle of LA, we didn't even know where he was at several days because we couldn't get a hold of him. We were depending on him to get a hold of us. And unfortunately, It took quite some time until all of a sudden we got a call from a very concerned, loving social worker that said, "Hey, by the way, I think this person belongs to you." To which we then said, "Oh my goodness, yes, of course." And then it just went downhill from there. But my point is this. For people tuning in, for those people that kind of know the story, why is this such a more common story than people are willing to talk about?
If you talk about it, if you acknowledge it, you have to do something. And I, I don't think anybody as a kid goes, I really want to grow up and be a homeless. I
Mm-hmm.
want to eat out of garbage cans. I want to beg at the gas station. Schizophrenics, they didn't plan on having that happen, and a lot of that comes from years of drug abuse. Can do, even if they might be even classified as a schizophrenic, where they just have permanent damage from drugs that they were doing. And if you and the thing about it is that, and it's been a little controversial because I've talked about this consistently and outwardly. People who don't have the ability, and so they have to make an informed decision, they need to have decisions made for them.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's kind of like this. If I'm a meth addict, if I'm a heroin addict, my parents can't make me do something. They have to wait till I want to. They have to wait until I get arrested and I have to. And to me, I can go in the bathroom and my daughter is sitting there overdosed with a needle stuck in her neck and call 911 and Narcan her and thank God saved her life. And they bring her to the hospital and then they cut her loose 4 hours later at the front door. And there's nothing I can do about it. And
Mm-hmm.
what people don't realize, and so they have a criteria that is somebody going to do harm to themselves or others, where you can get them what's called 5150 for 3 days, which not every state has that, by the way.
Right.
California, which is really difficult to do,
Mm-hmm.
um, they have it, but a lot of places don't. And in Texas, I've tried to get somebody 5150 that was, going to hurt themselves or somebody and couldn't do it. They said
Wow.
it's your problem. So, but
Wow.
but the thing about it is that somebody who has an addiction and is shooting drugs, that God knows how they got in that needle, where they came from, what's in them, and especially with the fentanyl these days. Fentanyl, understand what fentanyl. So you have a heroin addict, and say you opened a bag of sugar, a heroin addict would know I'm using a quarter of this gram of sugar, or I'm using a half a gram, or whatever it is. They can do it. And they know if they take 3/4 of that, they're going to overdose. With fentanyl, you would open that same package of sugar, and the difference between life or death is 1 grain of sugar. So fentanyl, the amount they're making that, they make it in a lab and they cut it into every kind of drug. If somebody is using fentanyl, they can't stop. You can't just, their heroin addicts can't just stop. People who are addicted to painkillers, they can't just wake up one day and go, I'm going to stop this.
Mm-hmm.
They don't have the ability to quit killing themselves. And and unless somebody's under 18 and you can go, you have to go, you should be able to, if somebody is addicted to opiates or heroin or stuff in your house, you should be able to call up and go, you need to come and get Johnny. He needs to go to treatment for 6 months.
Mm-hmm.
And really at 6 months of treatment, and it doesn't matter, and it doesn't mean that you're locked in a treatment center. Now, if you have psych issues, you might need to be in a place that you can't get out of for a while. And you need to be evaluated all the time and not be just medicated to the point that you're never going to recover, which you might have even seen that. There's
Oh
some
yeah.
places that they just
Drugged up.
medicate you so they don't got to bother with you.
Yeah.
And it's because it's work to get somebody better.
Yeah, they
And
just and I've seen it firsthand. They just drug them up until they can figure out their other medication or see what happens. But sometimes and it's sad because it's a cycle. You've got those that want help, like my dad. My dad always wanted help. He was always willing to go to the doctors, always willing to take his medication, always willing. However, what I often saw was there on the flip side of that, they were just more often than not, and maybe this wasn't the fault of those trying to help them out, but they just want to kind of be. I always felt like one and done. Like, all right, let's just move this one along. We got more coming in, and
yeah.
what I'm hearing from you is, unfortunately, whether because of cost, whether because of government intervention or lack of intervention, I don't know what do you feel needs to be done? If you've been going on record saying this, what can we do? I know you're not the president. I'm not the president. If one of us were to become a president, what would you do?
I ran for president.
And I think you should rerun.
And I got 2 votes, mine and my buddies. We were doing a TV show about it. So I've answered this question.
Okay.
So right off of the bat, the amount of opiates that people are allowed to get at one time. So people seem to think that you go down to the bad neighborhood and buy pills. Not true. You buy pills from the guy on disability that is able to go and get 180 Oxycontin, 180 Vicodins, 180 Norcos, and 180 Xanaxes. And the guy's making $1,800 a month from his disability, and he's making $30,000 a month selling pills. So, and God bless the people who have such chronic pain that they need to have so many opiates.
Mm-hmm.
But in my opinion, and there's a sector of the country who's not overprescribed. The people shouldn't be prescribed more than 10 days of opiates at a time. And so that way you don't have access, because opiates are money, pills are money. And the people that I met, probably 99% of the heroin addicts that I met, put a pill in their mouth when they went to the dentist. Their mom gave them one. They had one at a party. And then a year later, they're a prostitute on Lincoln Boulevard, heroin addict who's overdosed. And I would take some of them. And so depending on where I catch it, see, there's a cycle. If I could catch them when they were just on the pills, I could turn that back relatively successfully. So I would say 18 to 20, they're on the pills. Then what happens is they can't afford the pills. They can't get them. The same guys that they're getting on the street the pills for $40 or $50, they have a bag of heroin for $10. And the people taking the pills, they're just not wanting to get sick. It's not like they're having a party. So the heroin guys, they are they're just going to do it once, and they're just going to smoke it. They're never going to shoot it. So as soon as they smoke it and realize that makes them not get sick, now they're a heroin addict. And sooner or later, around that environment, they're going to go, okay, I'm going to try. Everybody's going, it's going to be better. It's going to be more. It's blah, blah, blah. Just shoot it. They're going to shoot it one time. Just one time. But they're never going to share a needle. So they shoot it. Now they're an IV heroin user. Now they're 22 to 25. They continue to shoot it. They're either going to be a dead heroin user, or they're going to have HIV or hepatitis C for the rest of their life. So that's the outcome in a 5-year situation. On the other hand, you get them into recovery and you keep them long enough for them to reintegrate socially and deal with the issues that they have, the real underlying issues, for a length of time that they get the tools, or they might need some help. Maybe they're super depressed and they need to be on an antidepressant for a little while. The idea isn't to medicate people up for a lifetime, but it's to give them what they need so that they can get better, with the goal of somebody being able to have a healthy life, to rekindle their relationships, to have some type of a future, to not be facing having to go to jail because they didn't show up to court. I've sent 100 guys from my treatment center to court with people in treatment, only to get them sent back to treatment because the judge could see they're doing good.
Wow.
And when my advice to people, if they get in trouble, go to treatment before you're mandated to do it, because it makes a huge difference.
Mm-hmm.
And most of the things, it's kind of like this. My son is 20, just turned 23, graduated college in Northeastern. And honestly, he's never taken a drug or never taken a drink in his life. And his life has been problem free. And I would talk to him when he was a kid and go, look, what happened to me.
Mm-hmm.
You know what happened to your Aunt Heather and your Uncle Mark and your cousin Nick. You know what happened to them. If you take a hit off that joint the first time, all the good things in your life might go away. I'm not going to say they're going to, but I want you to know that it's a possibility that all the things that you enjoy right now will be gone. And I said, that's what happened to me. So when somebody offers that to you, you need to make a choice. And he chose not to do that. And the other thing, everybody at Malibu, everybody at his schools, they all thought I drug tested my kids all the time. I never had to drug test them one time, never had to. But when people would offer them to get high or whatever, they go, what, are you kidding me? I'm getting drug tested. And so they had an out without being the not cool guy. And all the parents would, I announced it in a PTA meeting. I go, if you're going to bring over your kids to my house and I think they're high, I'm going to drug test them. And if you don't like it, don't send your kids to my house. I test my kids all the time. And this was when they were in elementary and junior high school. And so and they never got in trouble, and I see these kids that, some of the times I would meet these young girls and they knew where the Mexican mafia sold heroin, and they were 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
And they had lived in the back of the gas station in a tin shack with a predator meth addict who was doing bad things to him. And I would look at him and I go, you shouldn't even know these things. You shouldn't even know them. And, I think that people get busy with life and they don't realize. And drug testing, to me, your kids, and I always would tell people too, if you think your kid has a problem, he's got a problem. And it's probably worse than you think. 100 times I had parents coming in and going, I think my kid's probably drinking or using or whatever, a little too much. I'm kind of worried about him. And I would talk to the kid 5 minutes and find out he's been smoking heroin for a year.
Wow.
And it would blow the parents away. And they wouldn't know. They just wouldn't know. And you can go to get a $10 drug test at the, any pharmacy, have a kid pee in it, look at it, and know what he's doing. We didn't have, in my day, you either lied to your parents or you didn't. And if you were on drugs, you lied to your parents. So, they only had, you got red eyes, or you bouncing off the wall, you didn't come home, you had all of those things. Now you can just go, and I always would go, I believe you, so I want you to pee in a cup, just to verify. I know that you're doing good. And I would tell parents, and I gave away so many drug tests to all my kids' friends' parents, and I would go, he's high. He's high. They were selling Oxycontins at the pavilions to high school kids.
Wow.
They had this little place called Malibu West that was just rampant. I can't even tell you how many people, and it looked like a Brady neighborhood. And I was treating kid after kid, a whole generation of Malibu kids. And it was, and so, and I don't know which is worse, having money and being on drugs or not having money and being on drugs. One of the worst things for me was I had a really good life that was so empty and I didn't know what to do. When you have all the things you dreamed about in your hands and you feel like you want to shoot yourself every day because you hate yourself so much, it's the worst way to live. I didn't have the excuse that, I'd have nothing and I'm never going to have anything. So I use drugs. But anyway, back to if I was president, first of all, I'd help the veterans. They have waiting lists, 1,500 people on the TRICARE waiting list in San Antonio right now to get PTSD and drug addiction. Every veteran should have as long, as much, anywhere they want to go, drug treatment. If you're going to have somebody go out in the middle of the desert and have to have people shooting rockets at them, for God's sake, when they get home, take care of them. And people, it should be mandatory that anybody can walk into a drug treatment center and say, I'm on opiates, and automatically qualify for 6 months of treatment. It should just be automatic. At 6 months, they have a 60% chance of getting a year. At least give them the opportunity to be in and to have a 50-50 shot at it. And the federal government needs to intervene and have a certain amount of money that they're going to pay for that 6 months, in conjunction with the insurance companies, in conjunction with the tax on each opiate pill that gets sold. And it should be retroactive to the stuff that was going on. You see these pharmacies in Podunk, Kentucky, that were, giving out 20 million opiate pills in a year in a town of 1,500. And nobody's going, yeah, something's wrong here. And I knew guys that were on that train, the I-90 train, that they would go in a van down to Florida, and each person would hit 10 different pain clinics. They'd have a 15-passenger van. They'd hit 10 pain clinics. They'd get 180 pills for $100 from each one. So think about it. That was 150 visits times 180 pills, and they would go back up to Kentucky, Indiana, all through the Midwest, and they just totally addicted the whole thing. I mean, who's paying attention to that? Kidding me?
Yeah, and I keep hearing both sides of the table. I hear one side say something. They say, "Oh, are we stuck with the bill? We're going to flip the bill." And then on the opposite end, I hear, well, I haven't been hearing much on the opposite end. Here's what I keep hearing. I keep hearing we need to do something about those that are either A, unwell, B, homeless, or C, just fed up with life, right? And I would propose this. I would propose, in addition to all the things that you said, that we take care of those. And I hate to put it this way, but I almost feel I must, because some people just don't get it. Those that are at the highest of their career are, well, you faced it yourself, right? So you were at your highest career, yet you still were suffering internally. True, not true?
Oh, yeah.
So if you have those at the top suffering, unfortunately, and mostly silent, because they don't ever want anybody. Whenever I share my dad's story, my dad never wanted me to share his story that he was schizophrenic growing up, and so I couldn't share. I didn't have an outlet, and I always felt that he did himself and us a disservice by not being open and transparent. However, that was his way to handle it. But once it got really bad, it was kind of like there's no hiding it anymore. So back to my point, there's those on the opposite side, which, as you said, are either poverty stricken or already not doing well. Then to add this into the mix, let's face it, and I think you've said it before, you said at least you had enough money to go back to get recovery because maybe A, you had really good insurance, or you had the proper funds. So let me ask you before I go back to my point, approximately how much would be needed, and I don't know if you've done the math or done the numbers, based on those that currently need help and or those that are currently homeless, and then add in how much it takes for them to have at least even just at minimum, because I would love to get a full year, which I think you've said on record, a full year is really what's necessary, but at minimum 3 months. Have you done the math?
Yeah. Well, I want to let you know a couple of things. The substance abuse costs the country $1 trillion a year. They put multiple billions of dollars towards it. They don't realize and you know this personally, because what was going on in your family affected you. It affected your relatives. It affected the work. It affected so many different things. If somebody went to jail, it affected the courts. So it's not just about one person. For every one person, there's 20 people who are going to have some unproductive time dealing with this, depending on how long they have to deal with it. And if they can't get help, it's forever. So in a to be able to properly treat somebody, and that means you have to have a medical detox. You have to be able to pay a psychiatrist who's an addictionologist to do a complete psych eval. You got to pay a doctor to do the detox. You got to have registered nurses to administer it. You have to have trauma master's level clinicians to be doing the therapy. You need to have a nutritionist that's designing the meal plan. You need to have, these are just some expensive parts of treatment. You need to be insured properly. You need to have an environment that people don't want to run away from all of the time. It needs to be nice. You're going to spend I could do probably with a reasonable profit, which would want somebody to do it, because this isn't easy work. Understand, I tell people that my life, that the gravity of the world, it's 10 pounds heavier on me all the time. I never know when I'm going to get a call. It's 24 hours, 7 days a week for everybody else could walk away but me if there was something that happened. Mm. It would be somewhere in the area of 30, probably for 3 months, you could do it for about 35 to 40,000 to be able to give proper care. Medicaid rates would be probably 6,000 a month. Now, even the in-network rates, I would tell people, because you have in-network and out-of-network. For the psychiatrist to come and see a patient and the doctor to do the detox protocol, the cost of just those two is the entire amount of money you would get for an entire week of somebody staying there.
Wow.
So, yeah, it was like and it used to be that we would bill the insurance and they would pay about 50% of billed charges. And then it went down to 19%. And all of a sudden you went from making a lot of money. And when I was making really good money at this, I was opening more centers. Mm-hmm. I had in San Antonio a veteran center for 150 bed veteran center that I was actually had the bulldozers pushing the dirt to start building when I had to stop, because all of a sudden the insurance companies, without notifying anybody, understand that they didn't tell us they weren't going to pay. You didn't find out for 6 months while you were still intaking and they were authorizing you to treat people that they knew they weren't going to pay for. Now, in any other world, that's fraud. If I have you do work I know I'm not going to pay for, I'm committing fraud.
Right.
I have $100 million in accounts receivables from authorized treatment, and I've had to close 5 of my treatment centers and lay off over 200 people. I had to discharge 200 young people who were doing good in treatment that had individual California care or Obama care policies or individual policies that they got on the exchange. And they were dying so quickly after they were discharged that I could not do a funeral before I was planning another one. And sometimes I'd have 3 in a week. I had to go over to a hospital and get a hug from a dad telling me what a beautiful life I had given his daughter for the 6 months she was there. It's the happiest she's ever been. Their family got so much peace. He's crying and he's hugging me, and she's on a ventilator waiting to get her organs harvested. And while I'm over there, the girl who's sitting in the waiting room with me, Leanna, finds out her brother PJ is dead, who had just got discharged at the same time as the girl on the ventilator was. So we're doing that, and then all of a sudden we find out that Harrison, who was staying in Macy's room while she was waiting to get her organs harvested, he was overdosed in the room. He was dead in the morning. And I had to call his dad, who I knew, and I had to go with, and I knew PJ's parents really well. And his sister, she just wanted to die after this happened. And this was, so let me give you an idea of something. That was a week of Greg during 2016, after I went and begged Senator Booker to please, please, as an emergency, just have these policies pay something so we didn't have to let these kids go and die.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't. Nobody did. And I always kind of said that there was, because people will go, why is this going on? And you go, so prior to Obamacare, a pre-existing condition was a thing. So if you were a drug addict, you couldn't go to treatment because that's a pre-existing condition.
Mm.
Once that was eliminated, people who had that problem actually qualified and went to treatment, which was a good thing. So the insurance companies, in my mind, were sitting around at a table and go, okay, we're only making 46 billion now instead of 54 billion. So we got to cut something. Let's see, we can't cut the cancer guy, can't cut the kids, can't cut the heart, kidney, no, that's pretty good. We're going to have to, people would get pissed off about, oh, the drug addicts. Wait a minute. We're paying a lot of money out for those guys.
Mm.
Yeah, cut them out. One of the insurance companies completely quit paying every treatment center. Zero pay. And then they had to get sued, and then they got found that they had to pay the money, and guess what? They still didn't pay.
Who do we need to get to say, look, let's start doing something that makes a difference? And, I feel bad. You made, a call to somebody who's high power. Sorry?
I was trying to get to Obama and Trump with the stroke of their pen. And I met McCarthy. I got to sit and have a lunch with McCarthy, and it had nothing to do with what I was doing. I just hijacked it because I knew he was close to the president. A stroke of the pen, and they could end the opiate epidemic. They have to end what's going on right now in the over-medication, the over-prescribing, step one. Step two is they have to provide treatment for all the people that need it. They just need it. And the mental health treatment. I mean, I don't believe, if you go down to Skid Row here, I don't believe people, they'll go, yeah, we just want to live here. They really don't. And we can spend, I think we've spent $4 trillion closing everything down on the COVID. Spend $5 trillion and help the mentally ill, help the homeless. Really, don't just give them soup and a sandwich and a blanket.
Mm.
Give them access to help for their mental health. Let them be able to get medication. Let them be able to clean up. Let them be able to reintegrate into society. I would meet these young heroin girls, pretty ones, and I would say, right now, you're cute, so you can go get free drugs and do this stuff. And the men that you're hanging out with, they might have money and nice things and everything else, and they're just feeding you these drugs because you're 20 and you're cute. But when you're 24 and you're not so cute, you're not going to be in such nice places with nice men. And then when you're 30 and you're not cute at all anymore, now all of a sudden you're going to be with really bad guys, and you're going to be on Lincoln Boulevard. I go, let's go to Lincoln Boulevard and let's meet a woman who's standing out on Lincoln Boulevard and ask her how she got there.
Mm.
Because at one time she was the cute 20-year-old, and now she's here. And where do you go from Lincoln Boulevard when you can't make $1 out there? Is you go to Skid Row. There's a trail to it that you can intervene on that trail. And you can, but it's work. It's work, and it costs money, and it can't be, it's not a dirty secret that needs to get shoved under the rug,
Mm-hmm.
Or have something. You're seeing all kinds of things right at this particular moment happening because people got aware. We interviewed Kennedy on Recovery Today, and he said it's a human rights issue. People should be protesting in the street that people can't get mental health care. They should
Correct.
be. And I go, yeah, I agree. Well, what do you want to do?
Yeah.
He goes, I want you to set it up. I go, I'm not a Kennedy, man. You should set it up. You should set it up. So I'm interviewing again. We're doing an interview when we closed down for it. We interviewed him on our movie that we did.
Yeah, let's talk
And
about
they
that.
filmed me live. They
What's the
filmed
name
me
of it?
live closing a treatment center. It's called Death by Denial, People Like Us. Um, the They filmed me live closing my main first treatment center, telling a new partner that I had to close it, and telling the girl who had been with me since it was open that we had to close it. And it was never supposed to close. And when I was talking about it, I go, yeah, the what has Kennedy done? He's telling he on the movie interview, he said the same thing to me he said on the magazine interview was it's a human rights issue. People need to, and I go, and he kept telling me, you need to set this up. I'm not the guy with the voice.
Mm.
And I meet these celebrities and I go, get a voice. Daniel Baldwin and Tara Conner did over 100 shows with me on Fox and CBS because they're willing to talk about what happened to them. And Tara is a Miss USA that got in trouble. And Daniel, everybody knows he got in trouble. Daniel, if it wasn't for the fact that he smoked crack, his first time he smoked crack, he would be a way bigger actor than his brother Alec, although Alec won't admit it. And, there's got to be a voice for this. There has to be not a stigma. I mean, a kid goes to the dentist and they give him Vicodin because he got his teeth pulled, and then he ends up being a heroin addict a year later. That's his fault. They're not explaining that they give somebody and go. When I did the college programs, they were all on Adderall and Xanax because they get Adderall to study, and then they couldn't go to sleep, so they take Xanax to go to sleep, and the next thing they're on Xanax and Adderall, and you throw a little Friday night booze into it, and you're in an ambulance. And Monday morning, you're in front of me again. It's like, and I wanted to give up. I had enough. And, I recently got acquired by, or I'm in the middle of it, a company called Vibera. And we have made a home opiate detox kit
Wow.
Because 20 million people are addicted to opiates, and something like 1.2 million actually qualify for treatment. What do the other 19 million whatever people, what do they do? How does the mom with 5 kids and they're trying to make it through, to be able to feed their kids, and dad's not there and they're addicted to Vicodin and Xanax, and how do they go to treatment for a month? They can't do it. So what resource do they have? And the thing I liked about this company, and the product is called Opitox, which I've detoxed, I don't even know how many people off of it. And we've done clinical studies at my treatment centers and showed wonderful success, non-addicting, pain management, and it's the best detox kit I've ever used without having to use phenobarbital and hydroxyzine and clonidine and Suboxone. Suboxone, super addicting, and that's what the treatment for a heroin addict is.
Yeah.
All you're doing is changing drug dealers.
Yeah.
So,
I've heard it said by somebody that knew that, and I was like, what? And they showed me the science, and I was like, I had no idea. And I think a lot of people don't know that.
yeah. So totally. And the Suboxone guy that can't get a Suboxone, guess what he does? The minute he can't, the drugstore's closed, he doesn't have the money for his insurance, whatever it is that he can't get it in his hand, he goes and shoots dope again immediately. It's not like he's done. It's like, it's just a different kind of dope is all.
Well, Greg, and I want to say thank you for spending time with us. I know we've run beyond the time, and I know we unfortunately have come to, I don't want to say the end of this discussion. I say that this needs to be a continuation of this discussion. But here's what I'd like to say, kind of in closing, and I'll let you have the last word on this, though. What we need to do is do something that has never done before, and what I mean by that is, I often say, and I say, there's going to be a housing situation coming up around the corner. Some have balked at me and said, no, that's not true. Look at us. We're up. President Trump tweeted today, hey, NASDAQ at an all-time high, I believe. And so people are like, oh, that's not going to happen. I'm like, you haven't talked to the professionals behind the scenes. There's a lot going on that nobody wants to talk about it, but it's going to be a problem. And so my proposal was originally to take those that are making a lot of money, and I mean the companies, and create a package that the government can endorse for these particular companies that are making $1 billion, some in the multi-billions of dollars, and take a percentage of their profits and put it into a particular account, which then can either be tax-free. I mean, there's a thing called opportunity zones. Don't know if you know it, but it already exists for people to take out of their profits, not get taxed on it as long as it stays in there within, I believe the time frame is 10 years, and be able to reinvest into territories via real estate or businesses in dilapidated areas to help those lower income areas come up. But I would also propose, on top of what's already happening, that we do something and get all of those that currently maybe they don't have anything financially to draw from. But I would even venture to say some of these drug companies have more than enough money to say, look, why don't you help the situation that you also helped cause? Because let's face it, back to my stepdad. My stepdad mentioned a couple of the medications you just mentioned, he was highly addicted to because of his overwhelming pain. And although I know those need more something to help them with the pain, I also know the effects of it. And I saw him, in fact, the image is coming to me right now, where he was bended over because of the drug withdrawal, just trying to quit cold turkey. And that was him trying to do the right thing for my mom, for me, for my sister. And he was just trying to do the right thing at the time with what tools he had available. And here's what I say. More needs to be done. We need to stop talking, create action. And those in leadership ability really need to step up and say, look, if I keep talking about the homeless, I better offer a good solution. And the solution needs to be this. We need to come together. We need to financially make it necessary to be able to help those at the lowliest of low of their time, so that we can help. Let's face it, if you're going to affect change around the world, you have to start with those that need the most amount of help, because if they can rise to the occasion, kind of like you're a perfect example of exactly that situation. Now, did you have the means to do so? Yes. Do you still have the means to do so? Absolutely. And here's what I got to say, and it broke my heart when you said a moment ago, you almost wanted to give up. And I can understand. You have a battle unlike any other battle I've seen for quite some time. So here's what I got to say, and then I'm going to let you have the last word. You can't give up. You need to keep fighting. And you definitely have my support. And I think anybody that's currently tuning into this particular episode, they need to let their voice be heard in some way, some shape or fashion. And either they need to follow you, what you're doing, they need to follow us, what we're doing, because I think this is not a discussion that should go away and or be treated lightly, especially, and I'm going to tweet Trump, because evidently he's really big on Twitter, right? And I hope somebody in his camp says, you know what? If you want to go for re-election, maybe you should start with this. Or maybe I'll text both him and Joe Biden, since we're all so busy trying to get the votes, to do the right thing for those here in our own country. Am I right, wrong, or just completely incorrect?
I applied, when he got to be president, I applied, and I told my wife, I hope we get to move to Washington, D.C. I applied to be on one of his healthcare teams. And I was going, they should have somebody who's been in the front lines. If you're going to have a military guy, have a guy who's been in a war.
Right.
If you're going to have somebody who's doing drug stuff, have somebody who's treated drug addicts and been there. But I didn't get the job.
You know what?
I found that this 22-year-old kid, this idiot, got the job. I was like, are you kidding me?
Oh God!
Don't joking me.
Don't get me started on that. But I tweeted something like, and it actually was in favor of Trump, because his supporters were very big on Twitter. So I'm still going to do that, and I don't know how I'm going to word it. But look, I know we've run out of time. I know you've got places and things to do. But Greg, obviously there's a lot of work to be done. More work needs to happen. And I want to thank you and the care that your facilities, those that are currently open, and I hope that we turn the tide sooner than later. And I hope whoever listens to this message does one thing and they say, look, I don't care who becomes president, but you need to make it happen, and you need to make it happen sooner than later. There are people on the front lines, people, oftentimes family members, extended family members, or people that just, maybe they're not in our own circle, but they affect everybody else because we're all an interconnected human species. And I don't care what you have to say on the matter, no matter what color, no matter what race, no matter what creed, no matter what religion, we all are in this together. Greg, I know we've run out of time, but I'll leave you with the final word.
Give confidence to others.
I'm sorry, repeat that again. We couldn't hear you.
To help others, clean house, trust God, help others. My purpose in life is to give confidence to people. That's it. It doesn't need to be any more complicated than that. And I just want to do that. Homeless shelters should have mental health people. They got 3 people running a homeless shelter. They should have 10 people doing mental health services. It just should be like that. You don't put people to college to learn how to help. But we'll keep fighting the good fight. I appreciate you talking to me, Aaron.
NIU, Greg.
You know,
keep
just
fighting.
Keep doing what we do. And if you want to talk again,
we have to be. Yeah, we have to be vocal. We have to keep up the fight. And I want to thank you for doing all that you do. I always tell people, put your money where your mouth is. You literally are doing that. So I'm just going to say, continue doing that because people on the receiving end really need your help. Okay, Greg?
All right. Thanks. Good to meet you. Stay healthy and safe.
Thank you. You too. Okay, everyone. So there you go. Go check it out. Again, he's got great stuff. If you or someone you know needs a location to go to, just check it out. They have currently 3 facilities, hopefully many more. I believe there's an LA, Malibu one as well. But you could just check it out. Soba, SobaRecovery.com is one of the places, or you can give a call where somebody will answer and they will talk to you like a regular human being. No judgment, no nothing. If you want to put that, actually, we're going to leave with that really quick, that graphic. Let's pull up that graphic one more time. If you or someone you know feels that they have a hard time in life, make sure to hold that number close. Write it down somewhere that you always have access to, because you never know when you're going to, either yourself or somebody you know is going to be in this position and or situation. And I got to tell you, first knowledge talking to Greg, I know he puts his heart right where his everything is. Quite literally. There's the number, 866-445-9104, 866-445-9104. Thank you for watching. Make it a great day. And remember, life is worth living, so live it well.